Right, welcome everybody to the first Shoreham Zoom chat. So this is a session on transitioning from whatever class of boat you are in now to the 420. It's the first of the Shoreham's Zoom chats. And before I set out the rules for this particular conversation on Zoom, and introduce you to Jess Lavery, who's the head coach at the 420 Association. I'm just going to make a slightly shameless plug for Shoreham Sailing Club itself. Believe it or not, I didn't know anything about Shoreham Sailing Club until last year. And once the lockdown was lifted, we discovered this hidden gem of a sailing club just by Brighton on the south coast. Most of the sailing clubs were still shut as the government started to lift the restrictions for the first lockdown. But Gareth let everybody know that Shoreham, subject to all of these sort of COVID rules and social distancing, was open for sailing. And we got down there and discovered this beautiful club, perhaps not as luxurious as some of the big yachting clubs, but certainly great for young sailors. Has a brilliant sort of location on the harbour, and then once you get out of the harbour, you can, you're out on the water, and it's a stunning place. Great place for dinghy sailing, great views, and brilliant for boats like toppers, lasers, and most importantly for today, 420s. These are some incredible pictures we got from last year, immediately after lockdown. If you remember, the weather was incredible, and we managed to get these brilliant pictures of the topper sailors out there enjoying the breeze. In terms of its, great attractions, as I said, it's a great for launching. It's an easy, sheltered launch straight onto the harbour. There is a winch, but it's not used that often. There's always lots of hands on deck to pull the boats up. Once you get outside the harbour, the Shoreham swell makes for fun and exhilarating sailing. And most importantly, there's usually a consistent sea breeze, so you're never sat around. New members are always welcome. And as a parent, I'll say that it's competitively priced. Really, really worth having a look. It's not too far from London and some of the other big towns, and always welcoming of new sailors. When restrictions are lifted, there's even opportunities to camp out, and the sort of food there is competitively priced. So a brilliant club, really friendly, and I would recommend having a look at it, and if possible, joining so you can start sailing there. Okay, shameless plug over. I'm now going to just set out a few rules for these Zoom sessions. I'm not sure if some of you joined the Island Barn ones, but we're going to try and follow a similar theme. If you can, first and foremost, if you're not speaking, keep yourself on mute. As we're going through, post questions on the message board, any comments, any questions. If you want something repeating, if you want further clarification on something, put it on the message board. If it's appropriate, I'll stop Jess and ask her to go back to something, but generally speaking, we'll save the questions for the end. By and large, we encourage young people to put their questions first, and then we go to the more experienced sailors. Put your question up there, and then I'll invite you to put your question directly to Jess. So they're the rules. And we want you to participate as much as possible, because the more you participate in it, the more you'll get out of it. So just a very, very quick intro to Jess Lavery. She's recently taken on the role of 420 head coach. She had an incredibly successful sailing career herself, and she was part of the 470 British sailing team. She took on the role of head coach last September, and she's incredibly experienced and is very keen to share the experiences that she had, and more importantly, some of the things that she would have liked to have known when she was 15 and transitioning to 420. And she didn't have the access to something like Zoom to sort of let her know what should be done and what shouldn't be done.
Hi everyone, there's a few faces, those who've got cameras on, I recognise a few, and I recognise a few names on there. Some of you have done some more 420 sailing than others, but hopefully this will just give you a little bit of an insight into what the class has to offer, whether you're experienced or new coming into the boat, and also just a few of kind of the pitfalls that maybe you might want to try and avoid, or basically some of the things that I've kind of learned through my sailing and coaching that can hopefully maybe help shortcut some of that learning, so that as soon as you jump in a 420, you're kind of doing exactly going sailing and racing, which is what we want to do.
Sorry, Jess, I'm struggling to find the...
So if you click on participants.
Yeah, I've got you, but I can't see you because you're the main screen, that's why. Sorry about it, folks, give me 1 second.
You should be able to then scroll through the participant list, or if you just click on my face, I think, you can... Nope, you can't.
No, it's not allowing me to do that. Somebody else say something, sorry.
There's definitely a few faces I recognise.
Gareth, could you just say something?
Yeah.
Hang on. That's it. That'll allow me to do it.
You got it?
Yeah, there you go.
There we are.
There you go, Jess.
That was a weird little glitch, that because I kept speaking, you can...
Yeah, so once the person's speaking, you can't make them the host at that point.
Right, so... Fingers crossed, you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
And it's got the 420 bit on it and not some weird background or anything like that.
All good, Jess.
Wicked. Cheers, Ollie. Cool. So, yeah, basically just having a chat about 420s and trying to get that transition from your junior boat to the youth boat. So, firstly, I guess a little bit self-indulgent, but a little bit about me and kind of where I came from in my journey through my youth sailing, junior sailing, through to kind of my Olympic sailing that I did, and then kind of into the role as now a 420 class coach. So excuse the fashion statement there, but that is me very young. So I was lucky enough to grow up on the South Coast. Certainly my dad heavily involved in sailing, and it wasn't long before I was out in an oppie, very old oppie there for those of you that know oppie sail numbers. It was old then and it'll be even older now, but I did basically love the freedom of being able to go out, sail on my own. I did kind of, for me, it was into the oppie squads, did those squads, went to the oppie Europeans, and then kind of came to that question of what next. And it just so happened that one of my best mates from oppies, who lived literally around the corner, down the road from me, in Emsworth, was Georgie Mothersell. So we teamed up, literally no idea what we were doing, but decided that 420 sailing was for us. Georgie's older brother actually went 29er sailing, but we decided we didn't want to do that. We wanted to go 420 sailing. So I was lucky that I sailed with Georgie the whole time through my 420 sailing career. We had some really good moments. We won the Youth Nationals, went to the ISAF Youth Worlds, got a medal at the Junior Europeans, got a silver medal there. And actually, in our final year, we were looking really good for a medal at the Worlds and managed to proceed to absolutely mess it up on the last day. Went out to Lake Garda for our Junior Europeans, where we won the first race, got black flag in the second race, and we're then in Silver Fleet from there on. But this is our last day in a 420 ever sailing together at Lake Garda. Finished God knows where in Silver Fleet, but we had absolutely loved the journey together. And I was lucky enough that we sailed together our whole 420 time. And still chat to Georgie to my day. She's getting married soon, bridesmaid and stuff. So yeah, I've known Georgie for years, and so I was lucky enough to sail with kind of my best mate in that respect. Then decided I wanted to go Olympic sailing. So this is one of the girls I sail with, Flora, and did 470 sailings, sailed a few different people, and more recently sailed with a guy, kind of looking forward to the Paris 24 stuff, but kind of actually come to the conclusion that putting that one to one side, and I got the opportunity to come on board as the 420 class head coach in kind of September time this year. And so this is me actually coaching. I think this is back in Athens in 2017, I want to take a guess. So alongside all of kind of my 470 sailing, I've been doing a huge amount of coaching as well, coached a couple of the summer events through the year. So while I was never kind of leading the coaching, I was always heavily involved. So that's kind of a little bit about me and kind of my journey as to where I've got to now. So anyway, that's enough about me. Bit about the 420. So I mean, some of this stuff you'll probably know, some of it you might not know, but so 420 is 2-person boat, symmetric spinnaker, which is obviously slightly different to kind of your 29ers, fevers and things like that. Trapeze boat, so crew trapezes, helm doesn't. One of the quite the good things about the 420 is you've got a really big, there's quite a big weight range that you can sail from. So you can be down kind of 110 kilos together in the boat up to kind of 135. And myself and Georgie were right at that bottom end and were still able to compete with the guys in the breeze and things like that. And actually when we won our junior European medal, it was one of the breeziest events in Flanders that we'd done. So that's kind of a real big thing about the 420. You've got huge amount you can do to depower the boat or power it up if that's what you need to do, because we've got a centerboard instead of a dagger board, so you can pivot that, you can move your mast weight, lots and lots of stuff that is really makes it a great boat to be able to sail at kind of lots of different sizes, weight ranges. And the other thing about 420, and this is completely 100% true, is you can sail it in 5 knots. Okay, it's 5 knots, great, but you can also sail it in up to kind of 30 knots. And actually relatively early on in you having sailed the boat, because it's got that ability to depower, control all those sail settings much more so than you have in your junior classes, and you can be in flat water to absolute mega waves. And this picture on here is from Palomar's Christmas Regatta, which is often a regatta that the class try to go to, which is Palomar in Spain just before Christmas. And it's known for having some big waves and big breeze. And I mean, yeah, that to me just makes me smile when I see a 420 like that. So you really can sail it in right through the wind ranges and all wave conditions. I guess possibly relevant to all double-handers, but I think something specific really is you start to learn teamwork in the 420. You have to work together to make that boat go quickly. And it's very much kind of a joint effort between helm and crew to make sure that that boat goes quick. And the teamwork principles that you learn in a 420 can get taken to any boat you then want to sail or anything like that. So that's a really like powerful thing with the boat. It's a good technical boat. If you aren't into the technical side, that actually doesn't matter either. But I know that a lot of people do quite like the 420 for the technical side, the little boat bimbling, the tweaks that you can do, and things like that. And I think that's quite a big appeal to the 420. And whether you sail, keep sailing in dinghies or go to yachts, the technical aspect that you can get to learn in the 420 is quite a powerful thing. And in the UK, there's close tactical racing and on the international circuit. If there's a boat that you want to make you think and race hard, it's a really great boat for that. And it's also I haven't actually put it on here, but it's also got a really great social fleet. I've got friends for life from my 420 sailing, both in the UK and abroad. And as I said before, it can really be a foundation to sail any boat you want to in the future. So there's a bit about the 420, but great, right, I want to sail a 420, but where do I start, actually? Don't know where can I start? So I guess one of the first things that people kind of come to us with is kind of who to sail with. Oh, I want to try a boat, getting a boat in the basics. And I think, I mean, I've put love the boat straight under try the boat, because as soon as you jump in a 420, it's no matter what boat I've sailed now, having done 470s, other boats, the 420 still holds a special place in my heart. And whether it's 5 knots or 30 knots, actually you're maybe not 30 knots on your first try a boat day, but kind of 20 knots, you still be able to go out and have a go in that boat. And I think that's something powerful. So the 420 class own 2 class boats, which mean that you don't have to necessarily commit to a boat straight away. You can try one of the class boats out at an event to give it a go and have a go in it to see if you like it. As a class, kind of with the transition side, we're trying to get to most of the junior classes nationals. So whether you're an Oppie sailor, a terror, topper, cadet, fever, sailor, hopefully I haven't missed any classes off there, but we're going to try and make sure we get those boats to your guys nationals, so you can at least have a go and have a go in the boat, see what you think. And also on the class website, there's a lot of transitioning events, and this year we're going to really try and make sure we can run a specific transition program for those guys coming out of the class, hopefully with our main thing being a 5-day transition week in the summer, because that's something I got to do when I transitioned. A pile of us came out of Oppies together, and I think there's about 7 boats just from Oppies at that moment in time, and we all went up to Grafham residential up there and just sailed. I think we did a bit of swimming and learning how to rig a boat and stuff at that week. So there's that opportunity with the class to really try and have a think about that transition. We're trying to look after that a little bit more this year. I've skipped that who to sail with bit, so we'll go back to that. That's kind of often the hardest bit coming out of your junior classes. Who to sail with is always that big question. And I think you'll have maybe friends in your own class who might want to go 29er sailing, laser sailing, actually had enough, but have a chat to people in your own class. That's kind of your first place to start. Find out what they maybe want to do. You might actually have people who have switched from maybe their Oppie to a topper, or have gone into a fever or something, and it's chat to those people that you know. You might find that someone actually, if you ask the question, will know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with your best friend. It might be that someone you don't know of yet, but you ask the question if they want to go 420 sailing or double-handed sailing. That's kind of the best way to go, to just try and find those people. And if you're struggling, again, with the class, we have kind of a list of people that have got in contact with us saying maybe they want to crew or helm, that we can then help kind of not necessarily pair you up, but at least put you in contact to try a boat together, and things like that. And I think the one thing that's always hard with who to sail with is you just need to jump in a boat and have a go. It might work, it might not. Just get in a boat and have a go and see what happens. And then once you've kind of sailed a little bit together, it's then the one thing that's often can either make or break kind of your sailing partnership a bit is knowing where your expectations sit. So you might want to sail with your best mate, but actually your best mate might just be there to go and have fun for the social side, and you might want to be there to go and win, and you have your goals set on getting those medals at international events. Or actually it might be you're there for the fun and they're there to go and get that medals. And if that expectation in the boat is a little bit different, that's when it can be quite hard in terms of that partnership, because one person will want to be really serious and the other person want to have fun, and both are completely exactly fine in their own way. But it's just knowing, matching that expectation within your partnership is quite a good conversation to have, not straight away, but as you start to sail a bit more, so that you can really build that foundation of where you want to go to. So I think a couple of things on that is just ask around. If you're struggling, chat to the class, and then just know what your kind of goals are within what you want to do with your sailing. And if you want to go and have fun, that's like perfect. I mean, that's what I now love to do with my sailing. Or if actually you've got that eye on the prize, then both are just good. Then it's trying to think about trying to get a boat. In the 420, we don't just have one manufacturer. There's a few different manufacturers that you can buy boats from. There's Mackay, Nautavela, Ziegelmeyer, and Blue. So there's kind of all different manufacturers, and each boat will have kind of their advantage and disadvantage when you then start to get that top level. But actually, to begin with, it's just trying to, if you can get a boat, get yourself on the water, that's perfect. There's on the class website and around at the moment, there's a few secondhand boats for sale around the kind of $3,000 mark, which are perfect starter boats. And that's kind of, if you buy a boat for that, it's not really going to drop much in value. I guess speaking more to parents on this bit. But there are a couple of things that when you are looking at boats to have a look at and inspect on kind of any boat that you get from in terms of a 420. So first thing that to check is where the crew is at the front of the boat, and you have the side tanks that come down and join the flooring. That's always a little point to check, because as the crew jumps in off the wire every time, landing on that floor, you can sometimes get that deck lifting away from the floor of the boat at the seal right at the bottom. So if you're looking at any boats, that's something always worth checking. And then the same with where the helm sits at the back of the boat. You can end up getting some crazing in the gel coat at the back there, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can just give you an idea of maybe how old that boat is or how much it's been sailed. So if it's been sailed a lot, you might find that there's a little bit of crazing on the back there, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just to know that you need to keep an eye on that. And it's possibly a boat that's had a little bit more heavier use. And then it's kind of more anything. Those are kind of some specific 420 things, but other than that, you want to make sure you're checking the foils, checking kind of fittings on masts and booms and spinnaker poles where you've got stainless steel and aluminium fittings. You might have had a bit of corrosion. So there are a few things to just check on boats when you're looking at them, to kind of go through a little checklist as to a few of those things. And then once you've got the boat, I kind of put up here, get the basics sorted of setup and boat handling. You'll kind of see in the 420, we've had quite a lot, not me personally with the coaching, but the class have had huge success with 420. So in terms of setup, we know the numbers that you can just kind of plug in and go from initially, but getting that set up right initially, just making sure that that mast rake, pre-bend and things is where you need it to be for that first few sails, just makes your life so much easier, and things like that. And then just get the boat handling, whether you do a kind of transition day to make sure as crews you know where your hands and feet are going, and things like that, or what you're doing in the jibes as helms. If you actually just get the opportunity to kind of get that drilled into you early on, that will give you that foundation to go anywhere after that. So I think that's probably kind of where to start, get those basics sorted once you've got the boat, whether it's coming to a class training or speaking to a coach. You can email out kind of some of the stuff we've got on setup and a few little videos. Either way, getting those basics drilled in is quite a powerful place to start. So that's kind of where to start, I think, in terms of hopefully looking for boats or trying to find that partnership. And then the next bit I was kind of just going to chat about is kind of what I maybe wish I knew or I've maybe learnt with experience. These may seem really generic. You could possibly apply these to any boat. But some of the things that I think I wish I'd known when I first jumped in a 420 from my, jumped in a 420 from my junior boat was, you've got to learn together. I was a helm and I had a crew. As a helm, you're fundamentally actually doing the same thing that you were doing in your junior class most of the time, but you've got a crew at the front of the boat there learning a whole new skill. They haven't trapezed before. They don't know what they're doing with the hands and the feet, and it's very easy to get frustrated and annoyed with them or things like that. But really trying, if you can get that foundation in early of you trying to learn together, this is now a team, we've got to do this together, that just speeds up your learning so much more. So I wish I'd known. That would have probably saved us kind of 6 months or so of faffing around if I'd have actually given my crew a break at the front there, and let them make mistakes and let them learn. And then I think that just the teamwork side, I said partnership or partnerships. I only had one partnership in my 420 sailing, but in my 470 sailing, I've had multiple partnerships, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Helms might grow to become crew size, switches and stuff, but trying to make sure that you kind of underpin everything you're doing with that teamwork in the boat. And the big thing, some of you may have sailed double handers at junior level, but you're now more the similar age when you jump in a 420 and things, and it's very much thinking about we can do this as a team. And I think that was kind of something that probably took me a bit too long to grasp when I jumped from my oppie into a 420. Or not just me, actually, us as a team. It took us a little bit long to get that. And I think that's just, again, I kind of wish I'd known earlier on how important that foundation as a team was. I think what to look for in a boat, I've slightly covered, but I think what I wish I knew when I first started is that now you're out of your junior class, it's your boat. Your parents aren't going to know that bit of rope rubs when you're doing your kicker rope or stuff. And so being on top of that boat work and breakages, that side of it, I wish I'd learned that early on. It would have saved a few embarrassing sails back in with a broken trapeze wire, or annoying the coach because you'd rigged stuff the wrong way because you hadn't actually learned how to do it and things like that. And I think that was something that we just could have stayed on top of a little bit more, and that attention to detail. And then I think the final thing is it's a marathon, not a sprint. You have got time in the youth class to get yourself in, get yourself sorted. If your partnership's not right straight away, or you don't like who you're sailing with, or you don't like helming, you want to switch to crewing, or the other way around, there's time to do all of that. And I think it's easy to come out your junior class, you've been maybe at the top of your junior class and you feel like you've got to hit that ground running. But it's not a sprint, it's a bit of a marathon when it comes to that. And I think the other side of that as well, I haven't actually put it up here, but is your junior sailing is your slate's slightly wiped clean when you get into youth boat. Everyone's having to learn new skills and things like that. And while you might be right at the top of your junior fleet, you now have to work to how to sail in a team. There's 2 of you in that boat. And while you still have all that knowledge you'll have learned from your junior class to transfer, just because you weren't at the top of your junior fleet doesn't mean you won't be at the top of the 420 fleet, and things like that. So I think that's also something to remember when you're transitioning. And I kind of wish you knew that, because it gives you that opportunity to kind of do that next step. A little bit about the British fleet. So in the last 10 years, there's been 3 world champions come from the 420 girls, predominantly coached by Johnny. You can see there, Neil Marsden have done a lot of the work for that. I was actually at that Worlds, I obviously didn't win it, but so there's a good pedigree in the 420 class in Britain of producing top sailors on the international circuit as well as obviously nationally. So I think that's quite a cool selling point from the 420. We're pretty gender equal in the UK. We've got very similar number of girls and boys sailing the boat. You can sail them all girls team, all guys team, or you can sail it mixed. And actually any kind of combination you sail with is just as competitive. It's not always the guys winning, it's not always the girls winning, it's not always a mixed team winning. There's times when the girls have wiped the floor on the guys, there's times when the guys have wiped the floor on the girls. And I think that just goes to show that there's a really competitive circuit in the UK, and it's gender equal in many ways. If you really can race each other really hard, and that's pretty cool to see. I've mentioned the international success. I'd like to think we're a friendly class, and hopefully us coaches are too. But as within the 420, you're moving away from your junior stuff. You're now a youth class. You're growing up with it. And I certainly made friends for life. And I think still some of the sailors now would say that they're making friends for life with the class, because you're a close-knit team. You do the circuit in the UK together, and often when we do go away to internationals, it's a team that will go away together and stay as a team abroad. So you really get to know everyone you're with, and basically have, like, I have some amazing memories from my 420 time and things. And I think something else that's quite cool in the 420 is we've got from ages probably from about 12 up to 60. Neil is probably going to kill me for putting that in there, but Neil often comes and races against us, and I'll often try and jump in a boat, or Tim will jump in a boat for events. So us coaches like to jump in and let the sailors give us what for on the water. Well, hopefully we show them how it's done, but that's not always the case. And I think that just goes to show that as a class, you and as a boat, even though we're coaching it and sailed it properly many years ago, we still love to jump in and go racing. So that's a little bit about the British fleet. And I can't emphasize enough how much of like a family it feels like. Just so then, I guess a little plug specifically for 420s, but I think this image here, there's someone in these pictures has sailed a 420. So we've obviously got Hannah and Sass. Hannah came from a 420, now sails 470. We've got Matt Belcher there, multiple world champion, serial medalist, again came from a 420, and Luke, 420 sailor. Stu, now in a 49er, he's also a 420 sailor, came from 420s along with Pete Burling, again 420 sailor. I'm doing a proper little plug here. And then you've got, this is the NACRA podium at the NACRA 17 podium at the Worlds, when they last had a Worlds in, oh no, Euros. But again, Anna Burnett, NACRA crew, came from a 420. She was a 420 sailor. I'm pretty sure John did a bit of 420 sailing. Saxton in the middle there, again, came from 420, as well as the Brazilian girls who now sail in FX and won the gold in Rio. So, I mean, I've picked out the Olympic sailors here, but whether you go Olympic sailing, carry on in dinghy sailing, yacht racing, whatever you maybe choose to do with your sailing after, I think it just goes to show that the 420 really does give such good grounding that you don't feel like you have to necessarily go into a 470 or Fireball or whatever you want. You can really, it's kind of a platform to spring into any boat you kind of choose to sail. So there's my little proper sales pitch on why 420s so great. But a little bit of a whistle stop tour there, but I guess slightly open the floor out for if there's any questions from anyone. Now I've waffled on for half an hour or so.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jess. That was really, really insightful. I'm gonna, before I open the floor to questions, we've got a couple out there. If I just encourage you all to put your questions, and then I will come to you in turn. So first question is from Jess, your namesake. Jess?
Why should I transition into a 420 over a 29er?
Oh, great question. So I have done a bit of 29er sailing, nowhere near as much as 420 sailing, but I think the big thing for a 420 is that in your first year you will be racing, you will be competitive, and you'll be able to go out in pretty much any wind strength. Whereas I know that the 29er, in your first year, you can tend to do a fair bit of swimming. And a lot of it is just about trying to keep the mast in the air for that first year. Whereas I think something that's really powerful with the 420 is that you will be able to, within your first year, you can race it competitively throughout the wind strengths. So that's a big thing. And I think also 420, you learn so much of kind of the technical aspect and that side of it, that if you then wanted to jump into a 29 later on, you could go and do that, and you actually still have a lot of the foundations. A lot of what you learn in a 420 can be applied to a 29er. And there has been some sailors in the past that have done that and gone and done really well in the 29er fleet. So I think the big thing is in your first year in 420s, you'll be competitive in that fleet. You can go racing, you can use that tactical brain you've got from your toppers, oppies, fevers, and use it rather than just trying to think about keeping that mast in the air.
Okay, Leo, are you there?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, what would you say like the ideal age to move into 420s is? And also what's like the youngest kind of sensible, good age to move into 420s?
Really good question. So we get a lot of people moving out kind of at the end of their junior sailing, so kind of around 15, 16. In my last year of oppie sailing, so when I was kind of 14, I did a little bit of 420 sailing on the side of my oppie sailing, so I could start to learn the boat a bit. And so I'm guessing you're a topper sailor, Leo, judging from your background. So if you've got your last year in toppers, you can always do a bit of kind of 420 sailing as well. The youngest, I think we've had a couple of transitioned really young, but I think if you're kind of 13, 14 is probably the youngest you can start to think about properly going for it with someone your similar age. But again, because the boat, you're able to depower it, use lots of the controls. If you do transition at kind of 13, 14 as a pair, there's probably enough that you can do on the boat that means you can still sail it and race it. The advantage of transitioning that little bit earlier around that 14, 15 bit means you've got a couple of years to be able to really go for the under 17s. So within the 420 fleet, when you go to kind of the internationals, there's the open fleet, which is under 19s, or actually any age can do it, because I did it a couple of years ago and I'm definitely not under 19. But you've got the under 17 age group, which means that if you transition that little bit earlier, so kind of while doing a bit of sailing alongside your last year in junior classes, you can build up that knowledge that when you're kind of 15, 16, you have enough time to really go for it and try and kind of attack that under 17 fleet. I don't know if I've actually answered your question there, Leo. I waffled a bit. Was that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
How old are you at the moment, Leo? Are you thinking about switching a bit?
13 at the moment, so just looking for the future.
Yeah, so I think definitely if you wanted to, you could transition now if you wanted to, or if you just did a bit alongside your topper sailing or whichever boat you sail, I'm guessing toppers.
Yeah, so just have a go in double handers and yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, and just try it and see what you think.
Jess, before I ask the next question or open the floor up to more questions, can I just ask you to explain or to set out in a typical year, what would the calendar of events look like? So we're predominantly, a lot of us are topper sailors and topper parents, and we're used to local travelers and then some national events, and then perhaps a world if we're allowed to go. So, but what would a 420 calendar look like?
That's a really good question. So I'll start from kind of September, because that's the easiest point in the calendar to kind of start from. So, which I know sounds, but September, normally start to do some training, and we'd have kind of training positioned. We're trying to spread it out as much as we can across the country. So it'll be 420 class training, which we will go kind of South Coast, Midlands, and we're trying to incorporate the North a little bit more. Now, so be kind of class training once a month will tend to happen. There'll normally be one kind of, you'll have the inlands, normally kind of September, October time. the autumn champs will be around there, so you'll have kind of 2 kind of bigger events in the lead up to Christmas, and they've just introduced a Christmas regatta, which is again just before Christmas time. So that's kind of leading up to Christmas. Often go abroad to the Palomar Christmas regatta, just because it's a really cool opportunity to go somewhere a little bit warmer and do some racing against some foreigners. And then kind of springtime, we roll into our selection series. So for the Worlds and Junior Europeans in the 420, you have to get selected to go. So there's 7 male teams or mixed teams, 7 female teams, and 6 under 17 teams get selected for that. So then we keep going with the training kind of once a month, but we then roll into a selection series, which is normally an end of seasons, a spring champs, and often the youth nationals are used as part of that selection series. Bit more of a break normally around kind of the May, June time, because normally the age group of the youth stuff, everyone normally has GCSEs or A levels. So around that time, it goes a little bit quieter. We'll probably put some training on in May half term. And then as you get to the end of the school year, June, July time, start to look towards the international. So it'll be the World competition, which everyone that qualifies will go to in kind of August time, whether that be in Europe or elsewhere. There's the Junior Europeans, which is another, again, selected team for a slightly smaller team. We also often have a lot of people going to the French nationals over the summer. That's an event often people go to. Fed Week in Chichester Harbour is often can be well attended with 420s, as well as Pool Youth Week, I think often does. And then there normally be a nationals at the end of the summer, which is those who are leaving the class a chance to say goodbye, and normally quite a good bit of fun, with quite a few socials on in the evenings and things. So that's kind of, a bit of a whistle-stop. Sorry.
Thank you. So next question, proof that my son is actually listening. Are you there? Jabril?
Hey Jess, I had a question about once you've transitioned into the 420, about what good training exercises you could do to kind of boost yourself.
So a lot of what we'll concentrate on kind of in those first kind of couple of months when you move into the class is a lot of that boat handling. So whether we do kind of often be a bit of kind of just tacking on the whistle, jibing on the whistle is a lot of that side of things, but also quite a lot around a race course, because obviously in the 420 you've got a spinnaker to get up and down, reach hoists to do and things like that. So we'll often that's often kind of where we'll start with people when they transition. And there's an exercise which I definitely know one sailor will know what it is, but the 6-lapper that we do, which means we basically cover kind of every single maneuver you might do on a racetrack. So you'd get to the windward mark and you'd just bear away and hoist your spinnaker, get to the bottom, drop. Then you do another lap where you do a jibe hoist. So you jibe and then hoist the spinnaker, get to the bottom, drop, and then you get up to the top and do a reach hoist and do a reach. So a lot of it's focused around that boat handling, which is kind of why getting those foundations of what you need to do with your hands and feet as a helm and a crew through those maneuvers is kind of that key base that we'll look at. And then we'll start to look at some of the speed stuff. But as long as you guys are set up on kind of the base settings that we know as coaches kind of work are good to go on, then later down the line we look at kind of that tuning and stuff. Does that answer your question a bit, Jabril?
Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
Okay, next question is from Gabriella.
What wind strength would you recommend sailing when you first transition to get most out of training and practice?
Really good question. So I guess because there's so many different elements to the sailing now. In the light winds, you need to be perfecting your roll tacks, your roll jibes, and that's obviously a skill you definitely need. But as a crew, you're not necessarily learning their footwork and hands and feet that you need to do for you at the front of the boat in terms of stuff. So, I mean, ideally, if you could have kind of a 10, 12 knot day every single day, that probably would be your wind strength you choose to pick, because as a crew and a helm, it means that you get the opportunity to learn your footwork, learn what you're doing and things. But that's not really the reality. You'll end up with anything, and like you can build yourself up probably like for the first few times, maybe like 20 knots. Certainly if you're on your own, probably isn't the best thing to go out and do. But it wouldn't take long until you've got those routines cemented in place in kind of those 10, 12 knot bits where actually you'd have the confidence to be able to go out in the higher wind strength. But I mean, I guess essentially actually you need to try and sail in everything. But for the specific things, I think of knowing as a crew, learning your routines, as a helm, learning those routines, having kind of 10, 12 knots is like, I mean, champagne sailing in 24 knots, 24 degrees sort of thing. So you'd take that if you could.
Jess, do you think the 420 deserves its title as a very technical boat?
I think it does, but you can make it as technical or not technical as you want. It's probably like, actually, if you want, it's a really simple boat to go out and sail. Like there's the numbers that we know, we give you them, plug it in, off you go. And actually you can still go and win championships on a very normal setup, don't have to do anything special at all. But if you want to tinker, if you want to do like the fine tuning, you want to do all of that, you're able to do that as well. So yeah.
Okay. And is there any so in preparation before they go out on the water, so those people who don't have a boat or access to a boat, is there things they can look at, videos they can watch to help prepare for that technical aspect?
I think the international 420 class have some really good videos and some of this stuff. So that's probably the best place to start. I know that as the class at the moment, the website's been revamped, so we're trying to get some more content on there in terms of that transition of how you set it up. And we've got some really good just like PDF PowerPoint stuff that we can send out to people to kind of give you an idea of how to do things. But I know that the International 420 website has some really good videos on it to help you kind of get, I've got the hiccups, get that idea.
Brilliant. So I've got a question from Hugo Valentine. He's having a few tech issues, so he's not normally very shy. He's actually in the process of transitioning already, so still sailing a topper, but also he's got himself, I'm not sure if he's crew or helm, but he's already sailing the 420. His question is around youth squads. What's the process and where does it currently stand?
So good question, Hugo. At the moment, they have selected the youth squad off kind of their selection events. So if you go on the RWA website, they put up kind of what that selection process is. I guess similar to kind of the regional training groups and stuff like that. There's a selection criteria for it. And I think that at the moment, I don't think there's going to necessarily be a summer youth squad. Don't quote me on this, but I don't think there's going to be a summer youth squad as much as normal. I think it's more going to just be trying to get everyone back on the water, and then they'll look to put out that youth squad selection policy come for their winter selection for the youth squad. And sometimes they use the summer events, or sometimes they'll say which events they'll specifically be looking at and things like that. So it's normally on the RYA website. If that helps answer it, Hugo.
Brilliant. Before I open up some questions to the parents and some of the more experienced sailors, are there any young sailors out there who've tried a 420? And if they've got any thoughts?
There's a couple of nods.
Isabella, yeah, you're there.
I really enjoy the boat as a whole.
Sorry, I missed that, Isabella. You broke up a little bit.
I really enjoy the boat as a whole because I find it really enjoyable to sail.
Nice.
And, yeah.
Excellent.
It's just, there's like lots of reasons why, but like just like a couple specific reasons is because I'm currently the only 420 at my club, and I've sort of got a head start of everyone else because I was 12 when my dad bought my boat.
Oh, nice.
So I've been sailing for like 2 years now. And I really enjoy it because I've learned a lot more than I would in a fever, I found. And
Yeah.
That's it.
That's cool. Which is your home club then, Isabella?
Thorpe Bay Yacht Club.
Thorpe Bay. I'll have to look that up.
Ben Warrington went there and he was, I think, in the youth squad. He
Oh,
went to-
nice. I'll have a look.
Okay. And Ellie, you've also sailed the 420. Any thoughts?
Kind of the same. It's just like, I don't know, I've learned quite a lot, like about everything really about the boat.
Brilliant. And
Yes, I
Gabriella?
can probably jump in here and help a bit.
Yeah, go for it, Arlo.
So I transitioned last year into the 420s, been sailing it pretty consistently now. It's just, I can say some of the stuff that Tim Rush, who's one of the class coaches, really helped us, and we borrowed one of the class boats and he helped us throughout the day, and it was just a really go along to one of his transition weekends and he'll give you a really good baseline, a really good starting off day. You'll all enjoy it. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I've probably said it enough, but actually, like within the class, obviously I'm kind of the 420 class coach, but Tim very much does look after the transition side. And then on kind of the youth squad side, you've got Johnny McGovern and then Neil Marsden, who does everything everywhere, who coached me. Johnny and Neil both coached me in 420s, and now I'm kind of coaching alongside them. And with us kind of four with the class, we try and there's that consistency with the coaching, and we try and then also bring in kind of younger, more recent sailors to kind of help and assist at some of the training. So we've got a really kind of good core coaching group to really try and make sure that that transition process is as smooth as possible.
Right. Any questions from the parents? I'm going to declare an interest and say that my son is looking actively at transition to a 420. So I suppose what's going through my mind is, what's the key to a good relationship, not only between the helm and the crew, but also the parents, and how any tips on sharing responsibility. And I say this given that I particularly dislike driving, so I just want to hand it over to somebody else.
I guess I don't have experience as being a parent with it, but I know from running kind of my own campaigns, I think being clear on what you clear on who's responsible for what, I think early on is quite important. Whether you decide to buy a boat together, so go half and half on a boat, so that's what my parents I know did with Georgie, who I sailed with. It was half and half, and everything was kind of just split between them. We live really local to each other, so it's kind of one weekend one parent would kind of drive us, the other weekend the others would. There's some other people from the club, so they take us another weekend. As soon as I could learn to drive, it was out the door, off you go. But so I think that's important. It's just, I guess, kind of when it comes to any of it, being honest and open with it all is quite important. If you're not necessarily happy with something or things like that, having those discussions early before it kind of builds up. And I guess in any of the sailing, you'll either have the same partnerships or multiple partnerships, and everyone will have kind of their own things. And the kind of advice I can give to people is, if you can kind of feel like you've operated in a way that you would be happy to be treated in your own way, then that's kind of the best advice I can give. And it's just, and if it's setting the ground rules early, if actually someone you don't like doing the driving, you don't like towing boats and stuff, as long as you're kind of honest with that early on, then people know that that's where you sit. Or if actually you're the parent that really loves going to the events and you'd want to do that, and yeah, I always will be there, you're welcome to come too, but I'm always probably going to go. It's just having those discussions, I guess. That's probably one of the big things on that side, and an understanding of who's kind of responsible for what on the boat, which house does the boat live at if you share it, or if one person owns the boat, know what maybe the other person needs to contribute to that to help with upkeep or things like that, and just have those discussions, because otherwise it can get complicated, I guess.
Brilliant. I think Leo's got a further question on the squad system. Leo?
Yeah, hi. So it's Ollie here, Leo's dad.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was interested in knowing, Jess, what the squad system you got in 420s. How does it work? How big are the squads? How do you get in? What's the selection process? That sort of thing, really.
Cool. So basically, at the moment, there's no kind of like when you first start, there's no kind of squad that you necessarily get selected into to be able to do training and stuff. If you did really well initially, you might get in that youth squad, but basically all the class training is open to anyone attending, and we try to get quite a good ratio. So we try to have 5 boats to 1 coach, or 6 boats to 1 coach as a general rule, and we'll within the class training then split into groups, so that it's specific to what you guys need. So we'll often have youth squad boats come along to the class training, which is great for the newer guys coming in because you can see where you're trying to get to, but also for the guys who are in the youth squad and stuff, having more boats around it pushes them in that side of things. And then there's the youth squad, which is I think this year there's 8 boats in the youth squad, and that's selected kind of September, October time, have their first few weekends before Christmas. And then there's often kind of a Christmas review point where maybe a couple of boats might get added or invited to train alongside the youth squad, depending on how they might have done at the events. If they're a new partnership, maybe they might not have been able to do those events as that partnership to get youth squad, and then they show themselves at the class training and some of the other events that they're up there with the youth squad boats, and they might get pulled into it. So that's kind of how squad selection works in that sense, but all the class training is open to everyone, and then the youth squad selected is off what the RYA published, so it often changes every year, but it's normally done off 1 or 2 events, kind of early autumn time, or off some of the summer events, depending on how that's worked. And then the summer events, as I said a little bit earlier, was that you can't just turn up to the Worlds in the 420. It's limited, because if they did that, we'd end up with 80 boats from Spain turning up. So it's 20 boats per country, and 7 boys teams, or 7 boys or mixed in the open fleet, 7 in the women's, and 6 under-17s for the Worlds. And that's done off a selection series, again, which is published on the 420 class website. So I know for the selection series this year, there's 3 events, and it basically works out that you can count 2 out of 3 because there's enough discards in there, and things like that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to, if you want to, understand, to go to the Worlds, you have to be selected. That's like Hoppy's that we were in a while ago. But to go to somewhere like Palomar or Flanders Week, is that?
That's, or can turn up and go to them. So yeah, Palomar is a big one that people do just before Christmas. French Nationals is a big one that the class tends to head to. Flanders used to be on there. I definitely did Flanders, but it's not been as big a regatta in the last few years. So like, for example, in my first year, we made it into the Worlds team, but the Worlds were in Israel, and it was our first year. And actually Neil said to us, like, don't go to the Worlds. So we did Flanders and the French Nationals in our first year instead of taking that World place, and it was the best decision we ever actually made, mainly because we spent the whole of the French Nationals swimming, because the qualification was really light, and then we scraped into Goldfleet literally as last boat, and then it was like 30 knots for the rest of the week, and we were like 2 absolute tiny midgets, and we had to get rescued by some Spanish sailors, but that's another story. So yeah, the other internationals that you go to are like open, and the class does normally send a coach, or the class mid will be there, or there's normally support in some form at those events for people to go and do.
Lovely. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got no more questions on the chat, but does anybody have any questions that they want to raise with Jess? We're almost out of time, but I'm sure we can squeeze a few more in. No?
I guess just the final thing for me is, like, if you have got any questions, there on the class website, there's just an easy contact form for either me or Tim or kind of the training officers on the class, and just like feel free to kind of drop a message in there for any questions. It just comes through to our emails, and it's really easy for us to pick it up and things like that. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And there's, yeah.
And I'll wholeheartedly recommend the website, the new 420 Class Association website for the UK. It's just been revamped, and it's really, I found it particularly useful, actually, as we're going through that process now. And all
it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, well, the calendar dates are all up to date, and there's lots of technical information on getting started, yeah, and also lots of stories and contacts for the young sailors as well, so that you can get an insight from those people who are going through the sailing themselves. Unless anybody's got any further points, I'm going to thank Jess for painting an incredibly great picture of the 420 boat. It looks really, really exciting. It looks very, very friendly, and a great transition option for those people who are looking to move out of their current class. So Jess, thank you so much for that. That was really, really helpful. And as Jess has said, if you want to contact her with more information, for more information, or just any questions that you have, either go through the 420 Class Association website, or just fire the questions through to Shoreham, and they'll make sure they get to Jess.